What is up, you savages? This is the Protect Your Neck podcast, and I'm your host, Dan Tom. Analyst is work you can find over at MMAJunkie.com, as well as OutCheckerUS.com. But on this here program, the Protect Your Neck podcast, we break down high-level MMA. That's what we're going to do here today, tonight, whenever you're listening to this. Hopefully it's before the fight. Recording Thursday night here in Las Vegas time for hashtag UFC Vegas 34, or UFC on ESPN 29, or UFC Cannonier vs. Gastelum, or UFC Cannonier vs. Gastelum, however you prefer. Check the timestamps for when that breakdown starts, as we will go from top to bottom as per usual. And I will also recap my picks and plays at the very end as per usual, as I tend to get the analysis right about 30 minutes for a whole card. In what I aim to be our episodes, we will see. I'm going to have some notes, even though there won't be a recap, because the last UFC card was recapped, though I will touch on a couple PFL and Bellator results, some shouts, and more importantly, an explanation as far as the missing episode from last week, as well as why I'm going to be stepping down my activity massively, but this show will still be providing you a weekly presence. So I'll try to get through this as fast as I can without getting too sidetracked. Some things are connected, some things aren't. Like I wrote Ruvka, which, unfortunately, shout out to TSOV Pod, one of the only, one of the realest ones, I should say, in the space for sure. Pulver shared an article about a co-founder there. I always figured it'd be PM Tenori, maybe you get something like out of left field, like Donnie Darko style. You get the Patrick Swayze kiddie porn dungeon. No, it was the it was of course it is. It was the other co-founder, who fits the profile, and just went speaking to QAnon, went just crazy with that, and from stealing electoral ballots to storming our beloved nation's capital. So awesome. Dan, as Dan Tom's girlfriend just bought him 3 Ruvka stuff, a Ruvka cooler, and I have like half my wardrobe, as you've seen the breakdown videos, are Ruvka clothing. So at least with like BJ, I could kind of which I have, I banned him from the top 5s. I disowned my fandom from him, but and they hired Rose, of course, fucking Chud Rose. So yeah, I knew that was coming. So that's kind of unrelated, but I did write that down. And don't worry, I'm going to circle to the lost episode, which I can't blame on right-wing dog whistling or conspiracies theories. It was my dumb ass, really. The ultimate reality, right? Of course, I used a program for that. Shout out to my man, at JYork87, Jordan Killian, who still holds the title, folks, for most co-hosts on this show. One of my favorite co-hosts is with the mostest right there. We finally did the top 5 Japanese MMA fighters episode, and your boy here, of course, uses like one of the few programs, perhaps one of the only programs, it's the only one that I've used, that I found out the hard way, you can mute yourself, but not the conversation. So instead of having that audit that you often hear on podcasts, where it's like, you're muted, bro, you're muted. As embarrassing as that is, it's at least a fail-safe, right? Whereas this did not. It allowed us to have a conversation completely unknowing that the recording was only picking up Jordan. So you're missing me doing all my pedo Sean Connery stuff while Jordan, as a good co-host, plays along with the curveballs I throw him and does it better than myself. Jordan is a gem, of course, and is down to re-record it. We'll probably do that sooner than later because, of course, the Contender Series will be starting and running us into October or November. Who knows? I don't know. All I know is watching, consuming, and having to write about that extra show midweek will make it much harder to squeeze in top 5 podcasts into the breakdown flow, especially with what I alluded to before. Which is, and not just because of that, I just feel like anything Asian fucking related, traditional martial arts related, was just taking a hit last week, and just this week, like R.I.P. Sonny Chiba, to last week R.I.P. my uncle, Sifu Andrew Lum. He didn't die last week, by the way. I just stumbled upon it while I was researching for a podcast that I'm going to do about traditional martial arts. Shout out to Iggy and Tuman and the Tingradome. One of my favorite podcasts since it started, and still is, as it just released another awesome show with Nate Corey interview. Go check that out. But yeah, we're going to do a part 2 on traditional martial arts. Not to fill in holes, because they did a great job, and B, it's such a broad fucking topic. So I'm just going to be adding on my experiences, adding on some historical things, Asian American perspectives to kind of get that representation of the mix. I know my man up in Canada, Julian, will be on that show as well. And as well as Hawaii, how it ties into Kempo, traditional martial arts / really American martial art history at an important time. Which would have been great to have important people who were alive at that time. Again, hence the R.I.P. Sifu Andrew Lum, who was super respected even by the younger generation. Wasn't a woo-woo martial artist. Mainly did Tai Chi, but also, of course, was a Kung Fu man. And was brought up at that age where, like, Mitosi and, guys who kind of took and popularized it. Ed Park, of course, more familiar name. And anyways, and that's a whole nother story. Speaking of the Ruvka co-founder, wow, another sketchy white dude taking things from Hawaii. Anyways, sorry. As I lose more listeners, it's okay, folks. I'm a half white guy too, and I'm by the way, I'm guilty of like a lot of this shit, if not all of this shit, of that I'm going to complain about, which is part of the reason why I'm going to take this time away so I can focus on myself rather than, justified or not, continually complain to you guys and complain to myself and those around me. I'm really just going to tune out the bullshit and the space that seemingly, I don't want to say doesn't want me, because you guys are listening and I love you guys, but the seemingly ceiling of the mass majority that only wants me for a certain thing or just doesn't acknowledge me at all, never will. But yeah, sorry if I'm jumping around here, but yeah, it's so I fucked up the podcast. I'll still be able to bring some solid stuff to the Tingradome show. Not a lot of first-hand stuff, unfortunately, now. And that's obviously, not... I'm obviously much more bummed out about losing an uncle than stories for a podcast. Don't get it twisted, but it just kind of is just, from traditional martial arts, just how it's talked about. From people I respect, to big organizations that focus on it. It all just bums me out. And I feel like I can't look at any kind of social media without getting bummed out, which is why I, again, like I said, or I think I said, this is my second time recording it, deleted a bunch of my social medias, minus my Facebook, because, again, I had that kind of meeting and, with my old friends, and that was nice, although, again, they reminded me I was fat, which was nice. So, yeah, man, it just sucks across the board, and, seeing the same type of people being chosen for these positions, even though they have no connection or no experience in it. And it just really makes... not that I ever felt like my black belts meant a shit in Taekwondo or Kempo Karate, Chinese Kempo, but, I worked my ass off for them. I traveled, I did tournaments on regional, national levels, traveled to China multiple times. And... the fact that grappling is just as, if not more, and relevantly so, more problematic than all the things you can point to, which there are things, and I definitely won't deny them, by the way. I can speak about them firsthand and plan to. We'll save those for Tingradome. But yeah, and the art that you're trying to get your third black belt in is just as problematic with fucking... from racism, right-wing conspiracies to sex abuse and grooming, And whether it's the sex abuse on women to, you know, things I can more understand and relate to as a male / persons of color, it's tough explaining the sky is blue. And again, something I've been guilty of too, folks. But now that I've been experiencing it more and more from the other side, it really annoys the piss out of me and has awoken me to it. Well, that person was nice to me. Well, I heard about it, but I never saw evidence. Well, and you just making the amount of people making excuses and who these people make excuses for are always the same types of people / the same types of people that are not so coincidentally in roles or close to roles of power. And it's just gross, man. I'm just really disheartened with martial arts right now. Good news for you gamblers out there who don't give a shit about this stuff and are probably ready to not listen. Good news for you is part of my way I'm going to vent it by still working is I'm still going to be providing these breakdown shows. And I'm just going to focus in on things I want to bet, which will be more efficient because I'm really weeding out all this low-level last-minute shit, this dangerous variable shit, you know. I need, you know, sample size and stylistic context. I need both those things to somewhat line up. So I think that'll actually help our overall results, so don't you worry. But I'm going to be doing the kind of the bare minimum, and not the bare minimum in the Homer Simpson, you just go to work with a smile on your face, doing a half-ass job. That's the American way. No, just God forbid Dan Tom's going to finally work smarter and not harder and have more focused work. But, yeah, and as I'm spraying the room out, on the way out, Jerry Maguire style. If I've already said that or not, I don't know. But yeah, it just sucks. I've never felt like, you know, the ranks I've earned, the consistent work that I've put in over the years means a shit. And when you look at me, you know, fat Asian nerd and fucking, I'm bitching all the time. So I get it. Fuck's gonna listen to me. So I'm just going to step away from a space and a ceiling that just seems firm. And I don't care anymore, man. That's why I said save the follows. And I'm not hating on the people who get those follows or have their channels and have achieved these goals. In fact, more power to you. You know, there's really good people out there. And follow them and support their work. I've shouted them out. Especially the ones that still have me on their shows for whatever goddamn reason. Please support them. I'm not hating on them. It's more just me being bummed out on what people see of me as the message has been sent with, you know, with everything. I'm not going to keep bitching about numbers, but it sucks because in the world of where we can't, the reason why I'm just going to still work is you can't afford to stop. You know, it's the beauty of independent contractors in capitalistic society. But as independent contractors, more importantly and more relevantly, just like the fighters who I hope you guys, you know, support as much as you say, is that leverage is pretty vacant out there. You don't have much. So when I'm bummed out about these numbers, it's not because I tied my ego to it and I'm just crying. It's because, sadly, as stupid as those numbers are, folks, and even though it doesn't matter how big my numbers are, I'll still never be able to do things like call a UFC fight, or maybe even call fights at this point, which is fine. You know, I'll blame myself for that. I'll take that. Is that as far as getting paid at the end of the day, getting opportunities, re-signings, different jobs, etc., all these things count for a lot, especially the stuff that shouldn't, sadly. Not my... 2023 will be 30 plus years of throwing punches and kicks in some form. Yes, breaks throughout, of course. But 20 to 30 years of throwing punches and kicks. All around the world, training from Marcelo's to the Shaolin fucking Temple, Alliance, Extreme Couture, National Taekwondo. It's just nothing. It's how much fucking followers. Just like this, who can talk shit, who's got the Twitter game, Jake Paul, you know. And that's another thing. It's like all this, you know, Jake Paul talk and like, and it reminds me of Paris Hilton, where it's just like, you know, we got to give him credit. He's pretty smart with his money. You know, he works hard to do his boxing thing. Like, oh, what? Privileged dude with a lot of money and opportunities that, like, Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. We gonna give him. We got an award for him wiping his own ass too. But yeah. Anyways, another side tangent. But yeah, it doesn't mean much, and seeing what type of people, which is not me, whether it's my credentials, experience, the way I look, all these check boxes. If you want to check them off, you can go ahead. Be pretty consistent. It's not me, man, and especially by character, because I can't help but keep my fucking mouth. I can't keep my mouth shut. So I wrote sketchy journals. Those will be the ones that gaslight people like me and others for bringing up stuff like the Rose Whaley situation, even though they don't want to say any more. Even though I've been getting DMs about these people too, which I don't even want to say any more of that, because even though I'm not a journalist, again, I actually vet. I actually try to vet my information. Again, not sure if I said this already, but we're just basing journalists on being honest, vetting, honest and transparency, vetting information, and calling out bullshit, whether it's unethical, racist, etc. I think I'd score pretty fucking high in my defense, but again, I'm also guilty of a lot of stuff, like the making excuses, like, oh, that person was nice to me, I didn't see that, So again, I'm just as guilty. So I'm gonna work on me, folks. Sorry for last week's episode. I'm gonna remake that. There's gonna be a lot less of this talk too, because I'm just gonna be looking at less to be pissed off about less, and therefore, in theory, I will take up less of your and the podcast time with this bullshit. And it's not bullshit, but apparently it is. It feels like it is, and I don't know. I kind of just hate everybody right now. I really do. Because you can't. I wrote the song Swimming with the Sharks, which feels apropos to what I'm doing while working in the media space for my band, Night Runs Red. I think the lyrics went something like, no matter how many times I wash these hands, they can't get clean. Darkness burning deep inside of me, my only comfort not to be seen. So I'm jumping, and I forget what it goes. Anyways, but the first line, no matter how many times I wash these hands, they never get clean. And the more I get in the space, I realize that how many people are shitbags, and the good people, and if you consider yourself a good people, how you can't help but either rub shoulders, whether you're doing it willingly or unwillingly, proudly or not proudly. It just, you can't throw a rock without hitting a fucking scumbag in the space. And I'm gonna get back to practicing hitting scumbags and getting in better shape, working on myself and my mental health, giving times to those I love, like my beautiful girlfriend and my mother, and my dogs. Getting them outdoors and enjoying my FJ before we all convert to EV, which I'm down for, and I'm bummed Toyota, as a Toyota fan, that they've been actually one of the hardest lobbying against that. But I will be a hypocrite as I enjoy, as I build up my rig to try to be as fuel efficient as possible. But I really just want to get it have it my zombie survival outdoor vehicle to do some upcoming road trips and get my dogs and me away from a computer, and get my dogs the best out of the last of their lives. So that is my goals, folks. I'll still be hitting you here every week. We're going to get to this breakdown as we're about 20 minutes in. But to shout out and end these things on a positive, actually, real quick, best camp of my life. Great episode with at Friendly Spar Pod. I believe it was at Aaron-ish Jackson, Juice Jackson, on the show. I believe I'm not sure if it was Juice or not, but I believe I've talked to someone from that show before and interacted with them. I apologize if I'm bad at communication and cultivating friendships or whatever. I'm sure they're very nice, but so I was like, I'm pretty sure I heard this guy before, and it was a great episode. And as I go to recap Musasi, and thank Musasi here, I wanted to give his Musasi impression out a shout. As you guys know, I'm a fan of impression. That's one that I do. But whether it's like shouting out Chris Medaffer on TSOV or others, you know me. Again, back to being more of a journalist, even though I'm an analyst. than most. You know me, I can't help but give people credit when credit is due. And man, I gotta retire my. I'm retiring my black belts. I'm retiring everything pretty much. I think I'm gonna retire my impressions too. Man, he fucking killed it. Great Musasi impression. Great podcast. Go support all those people and their work. So. Also, shout to Mark Fellows, all the YouTube commenters, my man Tony C, who was asking me about my Musasi advice, and even though I was going to break that down in depth, which I always do, and my pick was going to be out at Junkie, which it was and always is, like I told you, especially those of you who are gamblers and gamblers who support this here show, this mixedmartialanalyst.com, you know, for whether it's the click-throughs from Onnit or Amazon, although fuck those companies, but if you got to use them, at least kill two birds with one stone, and go to mixedmartialanalyst.com, click through. That's only 2 extra clips. You can continue on with your purchase for no extra cost, and a small percentage gets kicked back to this here show, or the secure PayPal link at mixedmartialanalyst.com, again to the right. Those of you who hit that, I definitely give you guys first priority, really try to get back to y'all. And Tony was asking me what I thought about Musasi, and what I told him was exactly what I put in my breakdown, and that's exactly what happened. However, as much as I'm glad, and I sprinkled on Musasi inside the distance, Musasi TKO, Musasi round 3, and the money line, which actually dropped to like minus 290 midweek before it ended up closing at like 4-1, which is probably where it should have been. I ended up smashing that, and was going to tell you guys to smash it on the podcast on the beginning, unadded on an edition, as I'll sometimes do. And again, that all went to waste with the botched recording last week. So I felt extra bad because there's plenty of other people that support the show that probably could have used that information. So hopefully you listeners out there still read my breakdowns, still look at my picks at Junkie, because they did not lead you wrong, because my only other play was Ray Cooper at plus 100. So it was a clean sweep, man. It was a clean sweep. It was a nice little bump in the old bank account there, which was needed after the tough breaks that we've been getting. And again, to show the hopefully I didn't piss because again, you know, say what you will about some of the common culprits, you know, who consistently, you know, have been some of my best friends through life in general, much less just most sympathetic to these causes, whether, you know, Asian mental health or whatnot. It's you know, not to make it a race thing, but again, I want to balance it out and say, you know, balance it out there. And it's been the white dudes, you know what I'm saying? So I know white dudes get a lot of shit, but I also try to give you all your credit, and so not just balance out with positive. Real quick 1-minute movie review. Watched Paper Tigers, which again, it was nice to make light of the topics that kind of been bumming me out from traditional martial arts to you know, just having, you know, white dudes telling me what is and what isn't, what is racism and what is traditional martial arts, and just having to constantly hear these things from the same people. Paper Tigers plays off that well. One of my favorite characters, this guy Carter. Or not guy, because this character's name is Carter, and I'll just leave it at that. And it's hilarious. It's the classic, like, you know, he speaks more Chinese than the actual Chinese guys in the movie. It's awesome. And then, you know, they also make light, you know, they really bring back the kung fu genre in modern times and have a really unique take on it, which was fun. If you don't take it too seriously, of course. And I'll just say this, the 90s montage in the beginning, it's on Netflix, folks. The 90s montage in the beginning was just amazing because they did it VHS style, and really well done considering it was super low budget, because it took them 9 years to make, because it was an Asian director. And like Fresh Off the Boat or Up in Korea, Kim's Convenience, these things end up getting whitewashed behind the scenes at the very least, and they tried to do that with this, but this they stayed true. And they have strong, you know, Asian cast as well in front of the camera and behind it, which is great. And they just do a great job. There's just this 90s montage of them coming up and dojo busting and fucking up all these traditional martial arts schools, and it just really brought me back to, not that I did that, but brought me back to my youth with friends that I grew up with, the Wong brothers. Shouts to the Wong brothers. They were brown like me, and they were more Italian, but Hapa like me, half white, half Asian, as we call in Hawaii, or mix, right? Yeah. And it's really reminded me of the days growing up with them and competing on the regionals and nationals as we were getting up to our black belts in the early 90s. So go check out Paper Tigers. It's just a fun, wholesome watch. I would say hopefully I didn't lose too many listeners there as I went too long, but fuck it, it's my third time recording, and like I said, I'm spraying the room on the way out. I'm so done. If you've been tuning in this far to this episode or been listening to me this long, you're a boy or a girl. You know what I mean? Wow, Dan. Or now I gotta cover everything. God damn it! I'm digging myself a hole here. You know what I mean? You're one of the pals. You're one of my people. There we go. You're one of my people. And you're a better I don't want to say you're a good person, because that would insinuate that I'm a good, and I'm a person who's working on myself and needs to work on myself. But you're a better person than I, so thank you. So all right, on that note, we're gonna get to this breakdown here. 2650. Wow, I can't write with that, Dan. Well, yeah, all right, 2650. Mental note, I guess. Good job, Dan. All right. UFC on Vegas. UFC and ESPN 29, aren't we? All right. Jared Cannonier minus 144. Kelvin Gastelum plus 122. I initially came in looking to bet the dog. I'm still trying to find a pen here. To bet the dog, but yeah, man, Gastelum has just been too inconsistent even for his staunchest defenders, which I don't know if I was, but I certainly have defended him. And not that I, am abandoning him on the sidewalk, but I am picking Cannonier here. Reluctantly, though. It's weird, he's arguably the less durable fighter, but I'm going to pick him by decision. Just because, at a certain point, Kelvin had a nice knockdown to knockout ratio, but now it's like he's only knocked down or knocked out 7 of his last 14, so it's only at like 500, and a strong trend to the negative at that, right? So you also have Southpaw Records with Cannonier actually as a negative Southpaw record. He's 1-2 with 2 knockout losses. And, his only win was the aged Anderson Silva, right? So you could definitely look at that. However, he gets a lot of southpaw looks, at least with Ben Henderson, his coach, who obviously is coaching him really well with the calf kicks and leg kicks that he can do from each stance, or no matter what stance his opponent takes, which I think is going to be real apropos to this fight, given how Gastelum has always been undersized, but particularly in the legs, and he hasn't really faced dedicated leg kickers, though he's actually gotten his legs more and more beat up over the years and at a higher clip, which, by the way, literally every opponent who's thrown leg kicks in Gastelum's UFC career have landed him at a 90 percentile clip or upward. So that was a big swaying factor for me. Judges aren't as bad at not accounting for that, and whether it's on, the legs or the face, I think that the damage on Gastelum's going to show more. And especially from the Las Vegas crop of judging, who are following criteria and awarding damage to the point where they're borderline ignoring grappling, I think that's going to favor Cannonier. Again, not just on the damage equation, but on the other side, the grappling equation, which could be how Gastelum wins this fight, especially if he can get a submission, right? No one should be surprised if he can perform a stymie grappling performance. He's got the durability and the gas tank too. However, even looking at his more, by memory at least, stereotypical, like when he really stuck to the grappling performances and got those submissions, which were early on in his UFC career, even when you go back to look at those, like Uriah Hall or Brian Melanson, which was a club and sub, and with Hall, he stood with Hall a lot more than I remembered. I was very surprised. And that's kind of what Kelvin's always done. His striking has evolved, but he's kept a similar hop cadence. And with his grappling, he's also had a certain rhythm about him where he will both pursue and ensue if the other person initiates the scrambles. He's good off the front headlock and can take him back and can close the show like he did with Jake Ellenberger, which I believe was his last submission win, right? However, when those things don't happen, he scrambles to the point of almost detriment, and there's not a lot of control time there. He is a black belt under the 10th planet, but Jesus, don't make that joke, Dan. God damn it! I have my friends grapple at the 10th planet Las Vegas location. Anyways, let's. They're all cool. Anyway, let's. Eddie Bravo, okay, that's the elephant in the room. All right, so I don't fucking step on anyone's toes listening to this. Yeah, Jesus, that guy. I'll leave it at that. But yeah. I don't know. I think what's more, not materialistic, of more material value, I think, is that he has shown a trend to wrestle more, and spent part of this camp with his new best bud with Henry Cejudo, who he said had a lot of influence. So I'm actually expecting Gastelum to wrestle, and even if he's not expecting to wrestle, I suspect Cannonier's power will bring that about him. But Cannonier has gotten not just better at scrambling and get-ups and takedown defense, but the classic John Crouch MMA Lab imprints. He does the turtle, turn away, fight the hands, use the fence. And that's going to be good against a guy like Gastelum, unless Gastelum's really able to, instead of abuse the turtle or the brief turtle with a back take, chain off his front headlock series. That's what can also give way from turtling to your base, and that's where Gastelum and the fighter in the co-main event can do their best work from. However, Cannonier, even early Cannonier, getting dominated, give him credit where credit's due against, light heavyweight, garage weight champ, shouts to the MMA analysis, Glover Teixeira, wasn't able to put him away. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know about, arguable welterweight Kelvin Gastelum, right, in that respect. So, and then again, you factor in what the judges are awarding, it essentially comes down to Kelvin's going to have to put him away, And not that he can't ground and pound or he's not powerful there. He certainly is. But because he scrambles so much and he's not the positional guy, and if anything, he'll go for submissions, the opportunities to punch aren't as much as you think they would be for him. So I'm not sure he's going to, in other words, I'm not sure he's going to win the judges over there. So I'm going to go with Cannonier by decision. You can get a decent plus number if you want to sprinkle for fun. I may, depending on how my bets go in the night. But unless you're sprinkling on the dog, and I mean sprinkling light, because again, this is not a fight I'm confident on, nor should you be, or you're sprinkling on angles like goes to the decision, which you can still get plus money there. Although, again, Gastelum wins. I do think there's I do think there's at least a 55 to 60% chance that it's going to be by a finish, if it is, like a club and sub of sorts, because Cannonier has been rocked. Gastelum, although he doesn't do it, despite almost winning the belt from Izzy, hopefully he got reminded of that cross kick double attack that Whitaker fucking nailed him a whole bunch, and Cannonier with as well, because he could hit Cannonier with that. I think fourth round he knocked Izzy with that. And, whether it's kicks or punches, shots from the left side outside of Sean Jordan's check hook. Again, he was a southpaw up at heavyweight. Left hands have disproportionately, or left-sided attacks, I should say, have disproportionately been the common culprit for Cannonier. So, again, unless you're sprinkling on the dog or playing, like, goes to decision, or, like, if you could find, like, an overline in the minus 130 range, over, like, 3.5, I think those are kind of your range of angles. I haven't played, and I'm not really looking to play them, honestly. I just may sprinkle from having a good night kind of a deal. We'll see how I'm feeling. Co-main event. Marco Madsen. Water, please, water. Hey, who does a Marco Madsen impression, huh? Tell me that. Yeah, Dan. Go flex your hipsterness, because, that's worked well. See the beginning of your podcast. He's minus 154. Clay Guida plus 130. Yeah. Fucking. Um, I was looking to bet Guida here because it feels like a trap spot. But when you have stylistic, what was the word I was looking for? When you have stylistic analysis backed up by statistics, I can't help but go with this one. And not only does Clay Guida traditionally do really bad against wrestlers, I think the only wrestler he's beat in the last decade was Kawajiri. Older Kawajiri, of course. And not that I'm making excuses, but, it was what it was. He pretty much loses to all wrestlers or strong grapplers. Because strong grapplers often have guillotines. Thiago Tavares, 9 times. Thiago Tavares and Charles Oliveira as well in the mix there, right? Yeah, Guida, and I could get like, well, who's ever held Guida down, right? And Guida's a cardio machine, and Madsen faded in round 3. Well, Madsen had a lot of injuries and broke his jaw in that last fight, and he's been through a lot since. And it is a layoff. However, again, fighters coming off a year-plus layoffs are technically winning at a higher rate, still in the 50 percentile. But he's also working at Fight Ready, which we know how they kind of get fighters ready, especially in the cardio department there. But again, back to the stylistic part of that question posed, and it's legit. I get that angle. But here's the thing: is I'm not counting on Madsen to win a decision here or control him, and maybe he can win the decision. Don't get me wrong, because he's been working with Eddie Cha. We'll see how his striking comes along. Again, doing his camp down there at Fight Ready. And then when he's in Denmark having water, he's working with Martin Kampmann down there at Rumble Sports. So nice technical fighter on the feet. Knows MMA, well-rounded at least, I should say. So he's getting good training. But here's the thing. I think he's gonna get takedowns, and whether he's getting takedowns or Guida's getting takedowns, it's gonna open up the front headlock position. Whether Guida's shooting in, which he does, or is desperate, and he's been hinting because I get it, he's the more experienced guy, he's the better MMA wrestler, or you could make that argument certainly, especially because he comes from folk-style wrestling, Clay Guida, whereas Madsen is a Greco guy. I hear Ed Gallo. Boo, Greco. Love you, Ed. Yeah, so, and Greco, of course, you got, said Ed Gallo give a better definition, but attacking the legs like they do in folk, you cannot do. Greco, of course, a upper body focused, upper body centric form of wrestling, right? And you look at Mark Madsen's takedowns, he pretty much chains everything right in that range. Not that he can't shoot or push forward. He's certainly aggressive. He will I've seen him counter off of kicks to get takedowns before, which is good. So it's not, and I'm sure he's working on these things, but I get that wrestling argument. However, Clay could get himself into trouble because he has a thing about, Clay's the Energizer Bunny, and, his chin, more often than not, holds up really well. His cardio, all these things, and I know Clay's got black belt defense, which was like that 2009 commentary talking point. But the truth is, whether it was like 2007 against Roger Huerta, or any other time in his career, if you grab his neck, Clay will tap fast. For as resilient as he is, man, and he is, obviously, his career, in the fight, all these metrics, not taking away a clip from Clay Guida. But if you grab his neck, they'll tap. And a dude with gorilla grip strength who has all his submissions wins come by the way, minus like 2 arm bars from literally almost 20 years ago that Clay Guida lost by. All his other submissions, which is 10 submission losses, divvy out between guillotines and rear naked chokes. all of Madsen's submission wins are by guillotine or rear naked choke because, again, he's a wrestler that works really well off the front headlock. So whether he takes Guida down and he scrambles, like I'm sure many are predicting, well, how does Guida scramble? He turtles to his base. And again, what does that give? It gives, like I said in the previous breakdown for the main event, it gives back takes or front headlocks. And you're going to see a lot more of those in the weight class that Guida competes in, hence his submission losses to fighters who can competently do that, especially because they can either make him pay because they're submission aces and or underrated wrestlers like Charles Oliveira, Chucky Olives, or they're just better wrestlers like every person who beats him in his career for the most part. So I'm going to go with Madsen for my pick, and I went with Madsen by submission. I think like 0.62 or something weird. But pretty much like half a unit. I put a little north personally. I didn't need to. It was just the way it worked out for me. But yeah, pretty much 0.5 unit for the official books there. Plus 550 Madsen by submission. That's going to be in my odds checker article as well. And so when the stats back it up, I want to give a shout here. According to, and I want to credit, because give credit where credit's due, and this guy follows me, at Monk MMA Addicts, but it's at Monk MMA, and that A doubles for Addicts, so MONKMMATICS, and pretty much he shot out a tweet that said Guida wins 38%, roughly 38% of his fights were his opponents. He only wins 38% of his fights where his opponents attempt 2 or more takedowns. Only attempt, right? Whereas Madsen, by the way, attempts like 12.9 or something in 15-minute affairs. So shouts to that stat, and that kind of backs it up too. There's going to be plenty of scrambles afoot. Plenty of opportunities to grab that neck. All right, next fight. Chase Sherman minus 190, Parker Porter plus 160. I didn't tape this fight, and I avoided it. It's heavyweight. Rooting for Porter, but I picked Sherman to just kind of outwork him down the stretch. But if Porter could beat up his leg... Jesus Christ, Dan. Porter can beat up his legs. I think he can do some stuff there. He's a better jiu-jitsu fighter on paper, but... And it is a small cage, but from what I've seen of Porter, I haven't seen a consistent, heavy... / reliable wrestling. Not that he can't, but he seems like, in other words, he seems like he will engage in some swinging. He's not afraid to do that, so we'll see. I'm gonna go with Sherman though. No play, kind of on my avoid there. Alexander Pantoja minus 178. Brandon Royval plus 150. This isn't on my avoid list because they're solid sample sizes, and to be kind of reductive, you can just look at it that Pantoja has never been stopped, and Royval has only won 1 decision. So unless he becomes the first person to stop Pantoja will probably win as he puts out more volume on the feet. Even though Royval is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, I believe Pantoja is a black belt as well, and does have some Brazilian state Jiu-Jitsu titles and competition titles. Obviously a really great back taker, which is great if you're betting on a guy and you want him to kind of seal that round. Royval also, I'm not sure if his body, is we'll see how it holds up as far as durability. He is coming off a shoulder surgery, and that could perhaps be for the better. I kind of want to sit back and enjoy this one, but I also feel like you could swipe in Pantoja for either of the 2 parlay pieces that I give out in my article and that I'm going to give you guys here. The pick is Pantoja. I'm going to pick him by decision. I know there's an inside the distance number out there that looks super sexy. And I mean that, but I just don't know if he's going to do it. I don't know if I want to play it, so I'm probably going to just sit back and enjoy that one. Next fight, Austin Hubbard, Vince from Hell, Pichel, minus 108. Jesus. Vince Pichel has like Sean Strickland vibes for me, man. Something about, they just like little, not little by any means, but they're like pit bulls that are just fucking hardwired to just violence is reward. Reward is violence. Violence is reward. Reward is violence. And despite having no martial arts background, he really pushes through with that, man. He is a born fighter. He will fight for your money. He will dog fights out. And that's usually how Austin Hubbard gets back into fights. Austin Hubbard, much more cleaner, got a nice little hop step to his striking, but Pichel has kind of seen it all and overachieves. I really want to bet Pichel here, and now that it's even money, I feel like I could more than justify it, considering that I think he opened at minus 160. But I think we might get plus money, so part of me is being greedy. If it's plus money, I definitely am going to pull the trigger for my straight play. I may still pull the trigger at minus 108. But the pick here is Pichel, because he's not going to tire in that third round. He's not going to get discouraged, and he's a dog that'll fight it out till he gets stopped. And he's training at rival Colorado gym, not rival gym, but the other big gym in Colorado. Mark Montoya, whereas he was gym hopping all this time. So that's going to be real interesting. And he's got a lot of people in his weight class, just above his weight class, or just as below his weight class to work with. Yeah, so I'm talking myself into a Pichel bet. I may just play him. We'll see. Hopefully I can get a decent line on the houses that I play at. I definitely don't want to play any more than minus 110. Got to be minus 110 or below. It'll probably be by decision. I'll look at that number as well. I'll look at it right now, actually. Dan, you have it in front of you, dummy. Fight goes to decision, minus 210. Pichel by decision. Plus number, plus 195, yeah. I may have to sprinkle on that, too. All right, I'll try to remember to shout that with an asterisk, of course, because I haven't officially played it. But that's definitely where I'm looking. Trevin Jones, minus 146. Sid Yukab Haramanov, plus 124. Probably butchered that name. Not too familiar with this kid. I haven't had time to look at him. I picked Trevin Jones for staff picks, so I'll stick with it here. But this fight could be fireworks from what I'm seeing. And yeah, I'll go with the guy who was originally scheduled. No play, gonna stay away. Same with the next fight, Luis Saldana minus 122, Austin Lingo plus 104. Saldana I keep forgetting about, as I did this fight too, and I didn't get around to him. And I think I even wrote him up in Contender Series or something, right? That's where he fought. Yeah, both these guys like the box, except Lingo maybe a little bit more of that kind of wrestle box style from what I remember. So yeah, I'll go with Saldana. Not worth. I mean, they're both. You're getting plus money or playable chalk, so you can play it if you want, but it's on my avoid because I didn't tape it, so I'll just shut up. Yeah. Brian Kelleher minus 174. Domingo Pilarte plus 146. This one's actually gonna have the first leg of my parlay. I went with Brian Boom Kelleher, who is 4-1 against UFC level southpaws. The southpaw he did lose to in the UFC was Montel Jackson, who was a long southpaw like this. So I get hesitancy there. And if you count Andy Main, who was a long, I believe, southpaw at the very least switch stance fighter, because when I was at Alliance, I know, which I still don't get, but Miles Jury brought him in for Gomi, so they were doing rounds. Anyways, and he lost via guard. And arm bars, and that is the thing that Pilarte does. But if Pilarte doesn't get an arm bar here, a la off a Kimura trap, he does like the Kimura too. So hopefully Kelleher learned, like I tell you folks, see Rose. Oh, that's such a great knockout in retrospect. See Rose versus Andrade 1. You always. That's what you do right. You always slam to the Kimura side. To break the grip. Kelleher made the mistake and slammed opposite of the Kimura side, which allowed Chito to roll into an armbar, right? A really good one, too. So as long as he learned from that, I think he should roll here because he's gotten better not just against southpaws, but against striking in general. Whether he's fighting southpaws or orthodoxes even, he's been really favoring this darting right hand, which is going to be great for a guy who throws an obvious check right hook that he can get under and really favors the left kicks a la Luke Rockhold, like Bisping said, which is totally true, by the way. So I think there's a lot of looks and and not a lot of substance there. Hence, Journey Newsom. Sounds like such a, I know Goldberg never said that name, but it sounds like a very Goldberg name. Like, knocked him stiff. And again, he's coming off that and the year-plus layoff, which you shouldn't condemn him for. By the way, Pantoja 2-2 against UFC Southpaws. The parlay, by the way, no sub and they win parlay. Yes, that's what this one's called. We'll get to the second leg. Or the second, third leg. Jesus Christ, Dan, don't go there. Don't go there. But yeah, Kelleher is, he's gotten better with the striking, not just with, overall and those things that can lead, like the darts, that could be useful against the style of Southpaw, but against a long guy and a tall guy who cuts a ton of weight, which I'll get to in a second too. Kelleher's been doing much better. Of course, I could always say more body. That's what I'll always say. But he has been doing much better going to the legs and the body, which I think is going to be huge against a guy like Pilarte. And Pilarte, who is 6 foot and now entering his 30s, like 31 now, so he's toward the end of the prime and getting into the older man years, the man years, right? To be 6 foot cutting to 135, I don't think that's good. I know he looks ripped and jacked going into this fight, but he also looks like he's almost more ripped and jacked and thicker, which is like, plus he's getting older, that makes sense, but I also imagine that's going to make for a hard cut, which even though he's shown the propensity to come back, he's also kind of perpetually looking gassed. And even if he's not as gassed as he looks, we've seen it before, folks, you can shoot yourself in the foot. You can win a round and still lose it off your body language. As unfair and as wrong as that is, it happens. And this guy's, I've seen him look gassed in multiple round ones, Pilarte. And if there's a potential chin issue there with a Newsom knockout, like that's bad, especially for a guy that's like been finding his knockout power later in his career. And the fact that Pilarte will kind of take some really desperate long shots, he really opens himself up for guillotines. I know he's never been stopped or subbed before, but I think that's just, again, that false sense of security of his length that got him hurt on the feet. I think that can get him hurt there, too, because he goes for front chokes a lot with his long arms. He likes to threaten the ninja choke. I think because he has that offense, I think he overestimates, perhaps, his defense. And, again, if you want to accuse anybody of going headfirst in a submission, that's Boom Kelleher. That's definitely Pilarte's route, but he could also get tagged with a submission coming in, too, is what I'm saying. I mean, Kelleher got Yuri Alcantara, right? One of his southpaw victories there. He got him with a guillotine. So no one should be surprised if he's able to sub Pilarte. He can knock out Pilarte, and he can also win a decision because Pilarte always goes to split decisions and lose most of the decisions that does get there, which is at a low percentage in what is much less experience. So I'm going to go with a more experienced guy with more ways to win and a positive record against southpaws. I believe Kelleher will get it done inside the distance. Maybe I'll sprinkle on that line. I'm sure it's a plus number. Hopefully, we'll see. Let me just... Well, Dan, you have it in front of you, dumbass. Let's go now. Kelleher inside the distance plus 100. Oof. Gotta try to find that now then. Yeah, I'll probably sprinkle on that, but he is the first leg of the parlay. Oh, wow. All right. Second leg, or, third leg, depending on perspective. William Knight, Thick Willie, baby. It's Thick Willie time. Minus 174. Fabio Charant, plus 146. By the way, folks, again, let me call myself out here. Just like is done to my people's women with the Asian women, yes. Perhaps I'm definitely not being sensitive to the sexualization of or fetishization of black men. I'm not trying to support that. And in my defense, as you can see in top fives, with shout out to my Jewish brother from another mother, Ben Cohn, who's got a fight coming up. Fucking wishing him all the best vibes. I know he's going to kick ass. As we do with Talk 5 Thick Fighters. As you can see, we talk about dicks of pretty much all fighters. Shouts to MMA Analysis. I know they don't discriminate in the D department either. Shouts to hashtag Musasi for later. For what Ben brought up, he just got to win, right? Musasi's got that BDE, right? How about Benny Dariush? I talk about his. So I spread it around, folks. So for what that's worth, I will admit and bring awareness to that issue. But at the same time, it's in fun, folks. We're just trying to keep this fun. Even shout out to Tyson Chartier. Even William Knight, Thick Willie's manager, retweeted it's Thick Willie Fight Week, and I had a video attached of Paul Feller talking about spreading his chicken and how you don't want it, and Jan Anik doesn't want Thick Willie on top of him, and like that got like shared. So it's all good fun, folks. All right, this is let's keep it. You know I fucking I'm the bum out parade up off the top of the show. Depression's a motherfucker. Sorry about that, folks, but it doesn't mean I'm not trying. Okay, I'm not trying to keep shit fun. But no, in all realness, I'm a fan of Fabio Cherant as well, especially the story of him losing his mother, the diversity that this man's been in, that probably brought him to fighting. So I'm very sympathetic and want to root for him on a personal level because of his story. But unfortunately, this cat was just catapulted off of winning a fight that he was a dog in after a failed Contender Series bout in LFA, I believe, for the title, right? And in not the deepest divisions, you're going to get catapulted. And I know, obviously, Thick Willie is not like top tier, much less mid tier, much less top tier, right? Not saying you can't get to that middle tier or anything like that, or work his way up toward the top. I'm just saying, like, let's be real here. But it is UFC, for whatever that's worth. I know that's been watered down, but it's an unforgiving class and stage. I think that's the point. It's a finisher's weight class. It's big guys, pretty much, that are heavy hitting. It's the big stage. Everyone's watching. It's unforgiving from that perspective, obviously. And I just think that his southpaw kind of counter game and allowing guys to push him to the fence and like grabbing on for guillotines, like unless he gets a guillotine, again, back to my note, no sub and they win parlay, right? Unless he gets a guillotine, which is like apparently his move, then I think Thick Willie should win this fight because, and again, you got to get around the head of Thick Willie. It's quite a head to wrap around. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if you want what's going to come out from that reward either. But, Jesus, Dan. Okay. Wow. Immature humor. See, I just more me just being immature than anything. So that's the problem right there. Jesus. But yeah, we're already almost approaching an hour here. I'm going to push through. But yeah, if you look at how many times he gets guillotined or even gets like a good grab on a guillotine or a deterring grab, much less, to how many times he grabs for it, it's a really low percentage. I don't think he's going to get it. I am worried that Thick Willie was doing those Cain Velasquez leg presses with his Latina strength and conditioning girlfriend / coach cheering him on when she really should be going, calmate, Willie, calmate. Thick Willie, I guess he can get away with it. He's just so damn thick. I don't know how this guy fits in his shorts. He is 0-1 in the Venom fight trunks, so we'll see about that. Hopefully, you gotta make room for Venom's gotta make room for two snakes in those things, you know what I'm saying? Not even like snakes, like pythons, right? I mean, anaconda don't want none of it unless you got buns, hun. I mean, you gotta be able to facilitate guys like Thick Willie Venom. Come on. Although maybe that's not a surprise. Apparently there's no racist ties to that guy. Wow, you can't throw a rock without hitting one in MMA, folks. But I paired Thick Willie minus 180. Minus 180 got me plus 141 for one unit. You can sub in some Pantoja maybe for a leg there if you don't like either of the legs that I took, or perhaps a leg of the fight after the one I'm about to talk about. Bay Malecki minus 162, Josiane Nunes, I apologize if I pronounced that wrong, plus 136. I usually try to get the pronunciations right, and it helps to watch tape. I did not on these fighters, according to their bios. They both come from Muay Thai backgrounds, though Malecki seems a little bit more palpable. She has a little more experience, but who knows what Nunes is going to bring to the table. Malecki is coming off the layoff list. She's the favorite. People coming off a 1 year plus layoff are still winning at a 58% clip. I'll take Malecki. I avoided it, though. If it's going to be a striking match with the ladies, it could come down to how the judges are interpreting it. We know how that goes. All right, we got Roosevelt Roberts minus 146, Ignacio Bahamundes plus 124. I don't know if it's overcorrecting because Roberts has been, you can't really argue it whether you're a supporter of his or not. The dude's been overinflated consistently in the betting window. Because I think it's because he looks incredible for his experience level, and that deceives guys because they don't realize how inexperienced he actually is. And we've been watching him learn on the fly. So even some of those losses look bad, like where he admits that he says he gave up after he lost to Vince Pichel, and then of course he's coming off 2 really bad losses where he's texting Michael Bisping before he comes in. Don't text Bisping, Roberts. And it's for that reason. It's like I was looking to play Roberts straight up, but then I missed the dog money, so it wasn't worth it. And then I was going to look at a parlay him with either one of the two, which if you do or want to add him on, you can get plus 308, or if you add Pantoja on, plus 276, or all 4, plus 535 for funsies if you're that kind of style of player. I don't recommend that though. But yeah, I don't know if I can trust the guy. So I still, playable chalks minus 150. I feel like it's still there off those terms. And, Bahamondes, he's really young and inexperienced too. And I hate to be rude, but he does, come from a camp/coach that I don't think has the best record if we're, playing funsy fade games and looking at the numbers. So I'm definitely, picked Roberts for this one. But he's so inconsistent. He could get rocked and maybe knocked out. This is the guy, but it's probably going to have to be some like a liver shot or some like perfect spinning, like Edson Barbosa, Terry Adams style kick to put Roberts out, because Roberts seems really durable and unbothered as far as that aspect goes. And Bahamondes can put numbers on him, but his defense isn't great. And Roberts, hits hard enough to score with judges, whether or not he can get like knockouts or not. And he is pretty good wrestling. He can counter off kicks and gets takedowns, level changes, can change levels against the fence, can get takedowns from the clinch. Like, his wrestling is pretty surprising, and I think that's going to win him the fight here. He should do it. He's fought in the Apex. He's did it in the Apex. He's won in the Apex. But he's also been had real bonehead moments in the Apex as well. So it's tough. I'm definitely picking him here. It's just whether I trust him enough to play him. I feel like, Bahamondes says, shouts to Aaron Bronstetter interview with Bahamondes. He says that he does better against taller fighters. He prefers it, but he hasn't fought as many as Roosevelt Roberts, and Roosevelt Roberts has won those fights more than he's lost those fights for sure against tall fighters. And Bahamondes, all his training camp footage is all like shorter guys. So I don't know what tall guys he's training with even. So yeah, Roberts, I just don't know if I could trust to play him. But I may be looking to. I may put something small for funsies. We'll see. I may add him on for a fun parlay. We'll see. Nothing serious if I do. Small if I do. Lastly but not leastly, Ramiz Brahimaj, minus 136. Sasha Palatnikov, plus 116. Palatnikov, despite having some tournament creds on his bio, there's more kickboxing stuff and striking stuff on his bio for a reason. As we saw, just that porous defense. Brahimaj, even though he's only lists himself as a blue belt in BJJ, of course, 8 wins by submission, disproportionate wins by submission. Small cage, I'm going to take him there too, but I'm not super confident in it. We'll see. No plays. I avoided that one. All right, recapping from the top. Taking Cannonier over Gastelum. Taking Madsen Walter over Guida. Taking Sherman over Porter. Taking Pantoja over Royval. Taking Pichel over Hubbard. Taking Jones over Khacharmanov. Taking Saldana over Lingo. Taking Kelleher over Pilarte. Taking Thick Willie over Charant. Taking Malecki over Nunez. Taking Roberts over Bahamondes. Taking Brahimaj over Palatnikov. Parlay Thick Willie and Kelleher for plus 141 at 1 unit. I'm probably going to play Pichel at minus 108 or minus 110 if I can get it, although I would rather wait for plus money. Matson by sub plus 550 for 0.5 units. Again, I may look at Kelleher inside. And what was the other thing I was looking at playing? Possibly. I fucking forgot. But yeah, go listen to the episode. You got it all there, folks. Amazon on it, PayPal at mixedmartialanalyst.com if you want to support this free shit show, which sadly isn't going anywhere. Hit me up in the DMs at Dan Tom MMA if you just, again, I appreciate you supporters. Those of you who tip me, stop tipping because y'all tip enough. But feel free to bother me in the DMs if you need some second guesses on plays, whether or not there's going to be an episode, because you probably got to wait to the end of the week for it, right? YouTube, Daniel Tom MMA. You guys give the video a like, subscribe if you want. I don't give a fuck. Apple Podcast, thanks for the 5-star ratings and reviews, but it's whatever. All right, guys. Genuinely, thank you. Sorry for listening to me fucking bitch, and apologies if I offended you. It's not my means. I just am offended from this space, aside from y'all. Thank you for listening. Genuinely wish you good luck on your picks and plays. Hope you kick some ass at the window, and always protect your neck.